around 10 weeks, and he's disappointed he won't be able to play out the rest of the season. And Australian tennis player Sam Groth has continued his strong form into the second round of the ATP Tour tournament in Colombia. Now the 5AA forecast, a few showers easing today, a top of 13. Tomorrow a possible shower 14. Partly cloudy for the weekend with tops of 13 and 14. Then partly cloudy for Monday and a possible shower for Tuesday, temps in the mid-teens. More news as it happens on 5AA.
Call 5AA now to Talk Adelaide. 8223 0000. This is Peter Godfrey.
Good morning, 5:08, 10 degrees at the moment. Been sitting on that pretty much all night. Let's head across the ditch. New Zealand, Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz joins us. G'day, Selwyn.
Yeah, g'day, Peter.
You're well?
Yeah, very well.
Excellent.
Good to hear you after a few weeks.
Yes, it was nice to have a little bit of a change and see daylight and get to enjoy the beautiful view out the studio windows that normally is just darkness.
Instead of looking out for the stars or where the moon is or something like that.
Yes. Nice to see all that. Plenty of things for us to talk about this morning. First, said this news of the Australian soldier who's died falling whilst he was on somewhat a training exercise there in New Zealand. Was it Mount Cook? Can you tell us much about sort of the area that this happened?
Yeah, Mount Cook is down in the South Island in one of the more remote areas, surrounded by beautiful scenery and all of that type of thing. But certainly, like in any kind of wild terrain, there are high risks. And as we understand it, the Australian Army 2nd Commando Regiment is taking part in training exercise up on Mount Cook on the Grand Plateau area. Now, if you look at that area, it's like a great big kind of lake type of thing. The plateau gives that appearance of a lake, but it's there's snow on top of this, and then a metre or so down, there's thick, solid ice. Now, we understand from the tourism officials, etc., in the area, that what happens in very dry conditions is that ice is on the move all the time. And there's what they refer to as a ice fall, which is like a waterfall, except it's solid ice. And as the ice moves toward that ice fall, on the edge, obviously, it starts to rupture, and it creates crevices. And those crevices can be extremely deep. And we understand that the Australian soldier was what they refer to as a bridge. Now, the bridge isn't like a man-made bridge. It's where that snow and that packs down like ice across the crevice. It can be quite thick, and as they say, and the officials have said overnight, if you're very, very lucky, that ice bridge can break. So what we're talking about is a bridge of ice that is spanning the crevice, Peter. Okay. And your soldier, he fell down 30 to 40 metres, and others of his team, that same commando regiment that were training up there, down there, I should say, they were able to abseil down and get to him, administer first aid, but unfortunately they are unsuccessful in reviving him.
Okay. Is it this sort of thing, does it happen often, or is this sort of a freak occurrence?
Yeah, it happens enough to be of a concern. It's not so much a freak accident. And of course, if there's a training exercise going on in these type of conditions, one would, it's more than an assumption that the participants in that exercise will be testing their endurance, etc. So that's where elevated risk obviously comes into it. No doubt, there will be an inquiry both from your side and the Australian Army side and New Zealand into factors that led to this. Going back some years now, over a decade, there was an army exercise in the North Island in the ranges, in the volcanic area, the central plateau on Mount Ruapehu, when right in the middle of winter the weather turned extremely bad and vicious all of a sudden, which it can do in these alpine areas. And there was loss of life amongst those taking part in that exercise, that army exercise up there. That was the New Zealand Army. So there are, this type of thing, and there is a history of it, particularly when there are exercises and testing the endurance in extreme weather conditions. But that plateau, that Grand Plateau, And I'll read from a quote here, which is a direct quote in the New Zealand Herald newspaper, and the official is saying that basically the Grand Plateau is a lake. You get this area, even though it's quite flat, where there's a lot of crevices because the ice is speeding up, going down to the ice fall. So that's what I was saying earlier, and clearly they were trying to get across on this ice snow bridge that spanned that crevice.
Yeah.
But it gave way.
Yeah, very sad. On other weather things, you've had some wild weather, predominantly the North Island, though, up your way?
Yes, absolutely.
What's been happening?
Yeah, well, last weekend, this huge winter storm descended on New Zealand's North Island. We were warned that it was coming, but we've had a few warnings in the last few months, and I guess there's a sense of complacency around it. But everybody knew that this storm meant business when we were getting reports that up at Cape Reinga, which is the northern tip of New Zealand, the winds had reached their gust level of 160 kilometres an hour. So that's like hurricane strength, clearly. And that's those gales, they then came in on the back of those severe wind gusts. The gale storms, the rainstorms, hailstorms, just all embedded in for a number of days. What it did is it caused widespread floods right around the northern part of the North Island of New Zealand. And one woman, sadly, she was swept away. She was at a party, if you like, in a fairly rural area, and they all stayed the night at the party. And her car was down on some low areas, and the flooding started to show. And she went down to her car to see whether or not she could get it into a safe area. But clearly, the waters were rising too quick, and she ended up being isolated away from her friends and holding on to some like trees that had come down or something like that. Then she was washed away, and it took a good 24, 36-hour period to locate her body, which they did late the next day. But that storm, it ripped out mature trees, just ripped them out of the ground. It brought down power lines, of course, and that event itself caused power cuts for tens of thousands of people right through the north of the North Island, that Northland region, but right down into Auckland as well in the exposed areas. Roofs ripped off houses, all of that type of thing. Cars and motorcycles, trucks and buses in particular were warned not to cross the Auckland Harbour Bridge. In its wake, the storm had left part of State Highway 1 up in the Northland area washed away, and millions of dollars of damage right across the region. So it's one of those vicious storms, Peter, that come along, particularly in these island nations, and absolutely does its business. It wasn't a cyclone. What happened was a very intense low-pressure system was sitting there, and it was being squeezed by two other systems. One was a high, and that caused I guess engineers would say, like a Venturi valve effect, where you squeeze something, and when it's squeezed and it goes through this valve, it speeds up, and that's what basically happened.
That's what happened, gee, just amazing stuff.
It's a big one. Apart from that, the weather now has settled right down. We've had about 3 days of beautiful weather, clear blue skies at the moment, and just verging on frost, and certainly will be frost in some of the low-lying, more shaded rural areas of the North Island.
Okay, things have settled down. Well, we might just have a quick break, so, and then I guess another wild storm politically with Kim Dotcom at the centre of it. We'll just have a quick break, so we'll get some more on that in a moment. 16 minutes past 5 now.
Leon Biner.
The very high water charges in South Australia. Bloke has done a thesis on this. Former Water Minister Mark Brindle. Mark, what can you add to this?
Well, I couldn't do better than quote David Fembothy. How long are we going to put up with this fiction, Leon? I hear you day after day condemning too few people controlling too much in our economy.
Leon Biner, weekday mornings from 9 on 1395 5AA.
Imagine losing the ability to make your own decisions about your life, where you live, and your ongoing healthcare. It's a frightening thought, but any of us through illness or injury could lose the ability to make decisions for ourselves. There is a way to continue to have a voice. It's called an Advance Care Directive. An Advance Care Directive gives those caring for you a clear understanding of your needs and wishes in case you can't express them yourself. To create an Advance Care Directive, visit advancecaredirectives.sa.gov.au.
A message from the Government of South Australia.
Discover unique civilisations that today thrive in the wonderful contrast of traditional and modern life thanks to Phil Hoffman Travel. Depart Sydney next April for a 42-night cruise aboard Sun Princess via Airlie Beach, Darwin, Bali, Kota Kinabalu, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Osaka, Tokyo, Papua New Guinea, Brisbane and more. All this from $6,439 per person, including onboard credits. Book now at Phil Hoffman Travel, the travel and cruise specialists, pht.com.au.
If you could see the dust mites, mould spores, even pet dander that's circulating around your home, you'd probably hold your breath. But you won't have to if you get in touch with Health E-Air. They'll install a special air filter on the inlet of your ducted reverse cycle air conditioner to trap these nasties and more, leaving you with fresh, clean air to breathe. Fantastic for asthma or allergy sufferers. Visit healtheair.com.au. That's health, the letter E, air.com.au.
At the highway, there's a space for everyone. And I mean that literally. Have you seen the size of the bar in the sports bar? It runs the entire length of Marion Road. Well, not the entire length, but a good chunk of it. And it's there where your members card will get you heaps of benefits, like $10 meals and $10 cash back when you spend over $200. Gotta love the sports bar at the highway.
Have you ever thought of employing a person with a disability? It's a great way to recruit new people for your business, and it's easy. To tell us more, here's Joe from Programmed Property Services.
Hi, Dylan.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for joining us. So can you fill us in?
Well, Programmed Property Services operate across Adelaide in many different areas, and a couple of years ago we were looking for new people. We came across Personnel Employment, which is a service of Barcooma. Since then, we've been thrilled with the benefits of employing people with disabilities and really enjoyed having them in our business.
In what way?
Well, we've found that the people we've employed work hard, they're committed, they contribute to a really positive culture in our organisation, and the on-the-job support we get from Personnel Employment is fantastic.
Wow. What else can you tell us, Joe?
Well, we've now employed 5 fabulous people across our business, and they're all awesome. They rock up on time, do a great job, and they make Programmed a better place to work for all of us. It's definitely a good business decision.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. It sounds fantastic. Simply visit barcooma.com.au to find out more.
Listening to 5AA is a smart idea. Buying your new home off plan with Quattro? That's even smarter. q1000.com.au.
Talking Adelaide with Peter Godfrey on 1395 5AA.
And we're talking with Selwyn Manning in New Zealand as well from livenews.co.nz. Now, politics, your election ahead of you, Selwyn, September. Kim.com, bit of a salvo to fire across the bows of John Key.
Yes, certainly. This news came out yesterday, Peter. Now, Kim.com, he's the internet tycoon who the FBI is actually attempting to extradite back to the United States, or to the United States. He's also, the patron of this new Internet Mana Party, which is an alliance between the Mana Movement Party, that's already got an MP in Parliament, and the brand new Internet Party, which Kim.com has funded to get established. Now, this potentially destructive salvo across the Prime Minister John Key's bow that you mentioned there, Peter, this is clever politics in a sense. Remember that the Nationals here are in government and they are very high in the polls. New Zealand works under an MMP system, a mixed member proportional representation system. And really simply it basically New Zealand relies on coalitions of parties together really to form the government in this country. National is very close to the 50%. The polls show some just over, some underneath. But the problem for National is, while it's the most popular party with averaging around 47, 48%, it needs a few friendly parties to get over the line. So the opposition parties, led by Labor, the Greens, the Mana Movement, and now the Internet Mana Party, and New Zealand First, of course, those parties all they have to do basically is to have the lead party like Labor come through with a strong kind of in the early 30 kind of numbers, and they've got really a moral mandate to be able to hobble together a bit of a thing to form a party. Now, John Key, what he obviously wants is a pretty smooth sailing campaign. Now, yesterday, Dotcom announced that on September the 15th, that's 5 days before the New Zealand general election, Dotcom himself will hold a public rally at the Auckland Town Hall where he promises to reveal evidence that the Prime Minister lied to the New Zealand public over what he knew and when he knew of the details of the government's illegal spying against Dotcom and others, and also details of the FBI raid on the Dotcom mansion, which is just north of Auckland. Now, all of this has been in the public eye for quite a long time now, over 2 years. Every time the details are put to the Prime Minister about what he knew prior to the illegal surveillance that occurred over that period and on that operation, the Prime Minister said, I knew nothing about it, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. Yes, we have found out that our spy agencies have been operating illegally. What we're going to do about that is make what they did that was illegal, we're going to make that lawful. And they did that. They made a new law that made it okay for them to spy on permanent residents here and New Zealand citizens under certain conditions. Now, when Dotcom and John Key, the Prime Minister, met face-to-face during submissions on the government's new spy legislation that was just mentioned there, Dotcom and Key, they stared each other down, Peter. It was like a scene out of, the heavyweight kind of boxing contenders, when they weigh in, they stand there and stare at each other. Yeah. Well, they were sitting down in chairs as politicians and people of Dotcom's stature would do. They weren't kind of standing up there ready to push each other, but it was that kind of thing. It was you could smell the testosterone from Auckland. It was that strong. Now, both claimed that the other, while they're looking at each other, both claimed that the other was lying. The Prime Minister said, you basically, lying is what he was implying, and Dotcom says, oh, no, I'm not, and no, I am. The Prime Minister replied, well, if you're not lying, why are you going red in the face? And why are you sweating? That's right. He says, why are you sweating? And Dotcom says, because I'm hot. Why are you red? So this kind of thing. So there's a lot of theatre around it, which, as you can see. Now, this allegation that Dotcom has evidence that he is going to present 5 days out from the election and say, your Prime Minister has lied to you here. Now, you've got to say that this, with the attached to the Internet Party, attached to, a deconstruction of those events that were most damaging to National in the polls last year, is pushing and forming to be one of the more interesting events in the election campaign this year.
Yeah. I guess the question comes to mind for me, if he's got this evidence, why is he waiting till September 15? It's sort of 2 months away. Why is it just is that theatre, having it just at the end, or what? Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that the likes of myself and others have been saying all the way through. Okay, if you've got the evidence, let's put it out. Yeah. This guy seems to be the master of theatre and showbiz, and with this, clever politics, in the sense of waiting to a point where the Prime Minister would be most vulnerable, when he's most exposed to the public mood, where people are right into the politics of the thing, where they've got a context in policy and what the others are saying about it, not just hearing what the Prime Minister says and says he's comfortable with it and shrugs his shoulders and smiles, and people think, oh, well, it must be okay. So they've picked their time. It appears perfectly at this stage in the game. And this public meeting, like I was saying, it's showbiz. It's promising here, and this is the thing. It's promising to prove that the Prime Minister is a liar. Now, only one of two things, Peter, can come out of this. The Prime Minister can show them as a bunch of incompetents that do not have the detail, do not have the evidence, and therefore have been stirring it all up, or Dotcom can furnish and table evidence that can stand up anywhere that shows that the Prime Minister has been stringing the New Zealand public along. Only one of those two things. I'm suspecting there won't be an empty seat at the Auckland Town Hall on September 15th somehow. It'll be a packed house.
I'm sure if they're a bit short of funds, I'm sure it's a way of getting some
maybe
to
it is.
top up the coffers.
Maybe it is. All right, Selwyn, many thanks. We'll have to wait till September 15 for that one, but we will talk to you again next week, though, on other stuff from your part of the world, New Zealand. Thank you, Selwyn.
Okay, Peter.
Good idea, Selwyn. Selwyn Manning in New Zealand. Head to livenews.co.nz for a whole lot more. 5:28.
APN knows you can't rush experience and you can't buy it.
That's one of the reasons they like to reward it. Now that you're not driving as much, APN gives you a discount on your comprehensive car insurance with their Drive Less, Pay Less